everyone. And Judy, I think it's just afternoon, and Gail, it's just afternoon over where you are. Mike and I think it's later in the afternoon, so we're almost wrapping up our day here. But thank you for joining us for our Diversity Dialogue webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Elaine Spector. I'm a partner at Harrity Harrity, and we like to have quarterly webinars talking all things diversity. And today I am excited to have founding members of the organization called ADAPT, who also hold some pretty big roles in some of the leading tech companies in the world. So on our panel today, we have Gail Su from Google, Mike Binns from Meta, and Judy Yee from Microsoft. And they are all founding members of ADAPT Legal. And for those of you who don't know about ADAPT Legal, you probably have heard about it. I'm sure if you're on LinkedIn, you have probably seen a lot of posts about it and seen how this organization is growing. But if you're just learning about it, you are in the right place today. We're going to be talking all things ADAPT, the story behind its founding, its purpose, where it is today, and its future vision. So now I want to give a brief introduction to our panelists. So I'm going to start with Judy. I met Judy quite a few years back at AIPLA at a Women in IP conference. And from the moment I met Judy, she has been in leadership roles in advancing diversity. And for AIPLA, it was specifically with women in IP. But she currently holds the position of Assistant General Counsel of IP at Microsoft. She has been at Microsoft for 12 years and leads the patent team that supports Microsoft's Office apps and cloud business, including patent portfolio development, risk mitigation, open source usage, M&A transactions, IP licensing, strategic partnerships, and industry standard activities. That's a lot. That's a lot within Microsoft, I would say. Full range. Outside of work, Judy enjoys spending time with her family, or, I love this part, in the gym as a founding member of Seattle's first competitive adult gymnastics team. That is really amazing. So a quick question. The gym that you founded, is that just for people who are good at gymnastics? Or,
no.
Okay, or someone who loved it as a tween and loved the uneven bars, and I could come in. I could, seriously, if I'm in Seattle, I could come there.
Yeah, I discovered adult gymnastics is a thing about 2 years ago, and then after starting to go back and taking adult classes, kind of found some other women who were really interested in competing again, and there is adult competitions. So we formed Seattle's first team, and we competed last year for the first time in the NAIGC Nationals, which was in Tennessee in March.
That is amazing. I love that when people have lives outside of work. I still need to get one outside of work, but I'm happy to hear when people do things outside of work.
I will say I had been in search of a hobby ever since law school, and I'm so glad that I found this, because it's brought so much joy, and I feel like I'm playing again before. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's so great to have you today. It's so great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. So Gail, actually, I've known Gail for some time before ADAPT. We've gotten to know each other a little bit better through all of the work of ADAPT, but Gail and Google has helped Harrity in the formation of our Patent Pathways program. So part of our Patent Pathways program are matching up our program participants with law firms, and that's what Google does with their Legal Summer Institute. So they have shared best practices with us. We've gone back to them, and they've helped us kind of set this matching and all these various little things you have to do along the way that you don't realize until you start doing them. But it's been great to have them as a support for us. But in addition to that many hats that Gail wears in her work with ADAPT as a co-founder, and I'll just say one thing about Gail with regard to ADAPT, and you probably know this, Judy and Mike, she's super organized. Like, I think I'm organized, but then I look at Gail, and I'm like, whoa, like the way sometimes I think when you do this type of work and you start the committees, it's sometimes like trying to get everyone on board to get them doing different things. You are a chief organizer, and so I'm definitely jealous of your organization skills. But she is also, in addition to all the work she does for ADAPT, she is senior counsel on the patent transactions team at Google. In her legal practice, she supports all forms of patent-related and IP-related transactions, including patent licensing, commercial technology transactions, and M&A. She is passionate about supporting the next generation of IP professionals and giving every person the opportunity to be that next generation. And I think that's a lot of the work of ADAPT, is that informing piece. Like, a lot of people don't even know about careers in IP. So is that kind of what you're thinking about, like giving them the opportunity to like even?
Yeah, definitely. My entire life, I think I've just always been very interested in making sure that everyone gets the chance to be what they want to be.
And sometimes I don't even know it, what that is. For sure. So
Yeah, thanks for having me, Elaine.
yeah, thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, Michael Binns is joining us. And Michael, I always have to bring up that statistic from our paper that there are more practitioners named Michael than there are racially diverse women with regard to the patent profession. But what can I say about Mike Binns? And I know it was on a recent webinar that you were also speaking, is that you are super generous with your time as it relates to anything diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So every time we've asked for you to get involved with the Harrity Initiative, whether it being a mentor for Patent Pathways or being a part of our Minority Firm Incubator, you have always said yes and lended a hand. So now to all the other wonderful hats that you wear. Mike is head of Meta's Patents and Trade Secrets. He chairs Meta's Black Legal Affinity Group, which focuses on ensuring an equitable experience for diverse employees in the legal department. He is co-founder and board member of ADAPT, the board chair of Page Turner's Make Great Learners in Atlanta, a board member of National Council on Patent Practicum, and a trustee on the Foundation of Advancement of Diversity in IP Law, all which are focused in increasing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So Mike, tell me a little bit about the Page Turner's Make Great Learners. Is that a recent? Okay, I'd like to hear a little bit about that. No, not a recent.
Not recent at all, actually. I've been involved with Page Turner's going on the greater part of almost a decade. So I'm now the board chair and have been for the last 2 terms, so roughly 3.5 years at this point. But it's a nonprofit focused on teaching Title I students in the Atlanta region to read. The statistics, unfortunately, are that by the age of 8, if those students are at least on the path to reading, and so that's roughly 3rd grade, the chances of incarceration for these students triple. So it skyrockets. And when you're looking at raising the next generation of our working force, of lawyers, of professionals, we simply need literacy in order to make sure we keep that diversity gap. So honored to be a part of that organization and continue to do that in Atlanta. Yeah.
So for those of you who are participating today, anyone in the Atlanta area, I know we have a lot of friends in the Atlanta area. Please, if you're interested in volunteering, please reach out to Mike. It sounds like an amazing initiative. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite. And just to kind of echo your sentiments on organization, I feel like that's another one of Gail's many superpowers. So yeah. I'm not surprised by that. And Judy, of course, the fact that she can do gymnastics at this age, I count getting out of the bed as gymnastics. So maybe I'm doing the same thing.
I still think we're going to have an ADAPT board meeting that involves a gymnastics morale event. So
I like it.
I love
We
it.
should totally do that.
I like it.
I love it. Now, Judy, one more question about the gymnastics. Can you do a back handspring?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. My body. It's just...
I just want to be able to do a tumble, just a tumble. That's it by the end of the offsite. So for anybody out there who wants to join ADAPT, this is the time now, because you're going to miss the offsite where we actually practice gymnastics, just so you say.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it. I love it. So Harrity has had the privilege of getting involved with ADAPT at a very early stage. I know, Mike, you're the one who introduced me to ADAPT, and I talked to Gail very early about the process as well. But we weren't around for those first conversations. We weren't around for those, how it actually started. But before we get into the founding of ADAPT, I really always like to hear everyone's story about how they found patent law. And we all have this circuitous route for finding it. And I'd love to hear your stories about how you entered the profession. So Judy, let's start with you. How did you find out about patent law?
Well, I knew nothing about patent law. I went to school and got my engineering degree, went to work out in California. Was born and raised and went to undergrad in Michigan. So in moving out to the West Coast, I didn't have very many friends. And so in my first year, I decided, well, I think like the best way to make friends is probably to go back to school. I'll do a night program. And then I was always interested in law, but having spent so much time really focused on math and science, I wasn't sure if I could manage all the reading, but I also figured if I went to law school, it would say nothing about my career as an engineer at Intel. And so I thought this should be fine, even if it's a disaster, I'll make friends. So started law school and immediately everyone said, oh, you should be a patent attorney. And I was like, what's that? Why should I be a patent attorney? Well, you have to have a technical degree and you already have that. So you should be a patent attorney. And I was like, I'm not here for that. So initially I was just like, I'm going to stay away from that because everyone's telling me to do it. But it turned out that most of the evening schools, they have a lot of students that are there for IP specifically. And so a lot of the classes outside the first year started having patents and trademarks. And then I started realizing, oh, I actually do like this. Maybe I shouldn't run away from it. And so then I started exploring from there. But as you know, a child growing up and even in my undergraduate studies, never had I heard anything about what a career in patent law would look like.
And I think it's pretty common that people don't hear about it till later on. At least you made the decision, at least to law school, and someone told you. There's some that even go to law school and they're not advised about careers in patent law. Now, did you take the patent bar in law school or did you wait till you graduated?
I did end up taking it. The program I was in was 3.5 years. And so in my last half of like the half part of the 3.5, I took it then because at that point I had decided I was going to give it a shot, and so might as well have it done. One less thing to study for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something I didn't realize when I was in law school, that I could take the patent bar exam, until one of my friends said, he was an electrical engineer, and he was pursuing patent law. He said, we have to take the patent bar and we're going to take it our second year. I said, we what? Like, okay, there's a separate patent bar, and when do I can take it now? And there's not a lot of information about, that particular fact, that with your technical degree, you don't even have to go to law school. You can sit for the patent bar, become a patent agent. I think that is a kind of a huge message in the diversity space to bring more people into our profession in general, but also more diverse professionals for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gail, how about you?
So I actually had always intended on going to law school, basically because I had some good mock trial experiences when I was in elementary school, and also because my parents were very big fans of Matlock, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like the previous generation of Law and Order. So it was always like a familiar concept for me. I just so happened to choose chemical engineering because my dad was a chemist, and he said, don't do chemistry because then you won't have a job unless you go to grad school. Choose chemical engineering. So I just happened to fall into an engineering degree. Then I actually had a thesis professor in college who was a proponent of doing something that works for you. And so he actually had a woman from Baker Botts come to one of his thermodynamics classes and talk about what it's like to be a patent attorney. And so that's actually how I first knew exactly what a patent attorney was. And then after I got into law school, I looked into it more, and that's how I got to being a patent attorney.
I mean, that's it. When I hear your story about your dad telling you to go into chemical engineering, I think about my own. My dad was a mechanical engineer, and like I kind of fell into engineering. I happened to be good at math and science, and then I just fell upon it. And then patent law seemed, I had a family friend that told me, so it was just serendipitous. I think that happens to a lot of us, like the attorney from Baker Botts coming to your thermodynamics class. Like, that doesn't happen for everybody. A lot of undergraduates are not exposed to the program, but for those who are, it's such a gift for them to learn about it early on. And I guess we'll come back to kind of a piece of what we're trying to accomplish with ADAPT as well. Mike, how about you? I know, we've been on a panel together about telling our stories, and, your story is very compelling. Can you share a bit about your story with the audience?
Yeah, so no concept of law school, I would say, for the better part of my life, admittedly. I knew it had to exist amorphously, but I wanted to be a doctor. And that's probably because of my Caribbean roots. I was born in Jamaica, West Indies, and I lived there until the age of 10. And then I moved to New York, and the entire time my nickname was Dr. Benz, Dr. Benz, Dr. Benz. Actually, it was Dr. Benz, like the car, Benz. That is not how my name is spelled, but it was a cool nickname, right? I mean, I embraced it. I wore it on all my intramural jerseys, and I got backpacks made of it. Back when people were putting initials and names on their Yankee hats in New York, I did the same. So Dr. Benz through and through. I knew that's what I was going to do, and naturally, I studied biology and a minor in chemistry in undergrad. And not too far from you, Elaine, at Morgan State University in Baltimore. And there, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So there's no reason to stray from it. Well, took the MCAT, actually did quite well. And again, there was that part of it where I didn't realize it, but I was not a citizen. So I did not qualify for any financial aid or student loans to go to medical school. So while I had gotten in, I had not scored high enough on the MCATs to get any scholarships. And here I was, having dedicated my entire pursuits to medical school, realizing that I was on the cusp and couldn't get in. So I spent 2 years teaching, which I loved tremendously. I taught high school math and science. And probably the most fun part of that component was teaching PE to elementary school kids because they're hilarious. They don't have them anymore, but they have the little scooters that we used to play hockey on. So lots of fun times there. And then I started tutoring in the evenings because unfortunately, and this is not that webinar, but teachers are woefully underpaid.
Yeah.
And I decided to tutor in the evenings. And a friend of mine said, can you tutor me to take the LSAT? I said, I don't know anything about the LSAT, but I went on this thing called eBay and purchased some Kaplan books. They probably were on eBay for a reason because the answers in there were not correct. But he and I studied together. We ended up taking the LSAT. And he said, man, you really did well. You should go to law school. And with his convincing, I did go to law school, but similar to Judy, I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of here to make friends and we'll figure it out as I go along. And then I'm going to go back to medical school, right? I'm just biding my time until immigration sends me the right paperwork and documentation. And lo and behold, I got invited to on-campus interviews, which is a set of interviews that occur after your first year of law school, because everyone after your first year goes through the same curriculum and they can make a rough determination as to whether or not you should be invited to work at a firm. And the first firm I spoke with, which from that perspective was a dream firm I wanted to work for, because in their summer associate program, they play basketball at the end of the year at Madison Square Garden. I'm a Knicks fan. This is where you can laugh at me because the Knicks haven't made the playoffs in years. He asked me if I wanted to do patent law. I'd never heard of it. Because your first year of law school, you don't take any IP classes. It's all the core law school classes. So I had no concept of it. Needless to say, I flubbed the interview, went back to my books, started Googling again, a year of law school under my belt, had never heard of it. And I looked it up and realized it actually was the union of two things I love: legal argument and technology. And so from then on, I was like, this is my profession. I didn't know why I never knew about it, but that was my profession. And I was fortunate enough to then parlay myself into a better interview with at least some modicum information. And here we are.
And that's just thinking about your story and coming into law school. It reminds me of, do you all watch Suits?
Well, a little bit, right? So no spoilers, but
yeah, no spoilers.
Not quite accurate.
You weren't taking the exam for anyone else, but you were helping them study. So anyway, yeah, it's amazing how even at law school, they don't provide counseling at that early stage to identify those who might have that tech background to usher them along into considering a career in patent law. Some of us resist it and think, oh no, like Judy, like, no, that's not for me, but at least having that as an option and understanding what that is. And I think that's a big part of the mission of ADAPT, but I'll let you guys speak about the mission of ADAPT. But before we get to that, I'm going to take a step back and talk about the founding of ADAPT. how did the idea come about? And I know it's some friends who got together, you guys were talking, but what were those conversations in particular? If I were a fly on the wall, what did it look like?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Gail's initial conversations with Mike, but the ones with me went something like this. Hey, I'm thinking about doing something in the diversity space. Do you think Microsoft would want to do something like that? Who should I talk to? And I said, absolutely, you can talk to me. And then shortly after that, I got an email from Gail introducing me to Mike and Steve Gong, also at Google. And Gail was very organized, had some suggestions that we take an inventory of the different diversity programs that were happening at our respective companies or that we knew about in the industry. And we didn't know what we were going to do, but we were starting with this inventory. And this, I want to say, was like November, December of 2021. So it was, late in the year when you're kind of like, oh, am I going to get everything done before the holiday break? But yeah, I'm going to do this because it's important and I don't know where it's going to lead to. And so we did that. And I think from my perspective, ADAPT was really born out of a desire to not recreate or compete with other programs that already exist out in the industry, and more to give a voice and a spotlight to the great work that other people are doing. So that's kind of my way in which I feel like we started. But I am curious to hear what Gail and Mike, their perspectives are.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, Gail will sum it up kind of with a nice little bow, as she articulately does. But it's so much recognition about the amazing organizations as well as the programming that had already been put together. And I remember talking with Gail, similar to Judy, and just realizing that there was a real need to combine it all, or at least to put it all in a usable, tangible format and kind of break down the walls of separation that we all had within our respective organizations or within our respective programs, and kind of demystify the complexity of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and basically bringing light to the fact that it's not that complex. But again, it was fortuitous, and to Judy's point, it was the right time. It was like, yes, this is a great idea. Why don't we do this? But yeah. I'll let Gail kind of give a little bit more on the genesis.
Yeah, so I think there was a lot of interest in people to help out with diversity. And I think some of the issue was people didn't know what to do, right? They needed guidance. And sometimes, they had 1 hour, or, they had $100, or, they could kind of plug in, jump out. And part of what we talked about was, well, there's so much time and resource that's available. You just have to piece it together. And how do we piece it together? And so, like Judy said, what we did was we took inventory. So we tried to figure out what was already out there. And we found that there was a lot of really great work. It was having a lot of great impact. But how do we multiply it, right? How do we get everybody plugged in? How do we even get people to know that these things exist? And that's where, we can talk about the pillars in a little bit, but that's how we ended up with the 3 core pillars that we had.
So let's jump into those. I mean, I know we're going to talk about that a little later on, but we can jump into that right now to talk a little bit about the pillars, because I think that sounds a foundation for what ADAPT is. So Gail, if you want to start with the pillars.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I jumped.
Yeah, so I can get started on the pillars. Please, Mike or Judy, jump in. So we have 3 core pillars, and we call that accessibility to information, connection to people, powered by technology. And it serves one thing, which is community. So in the accessibility to information pillar, this is, how do we make sure that people know how to help? How do we make sure that people who need help know where to go to get help? And we think about this as almost a relay race of support, where the patent getting to become a patent professional is kind of a very long journey, right? If you're going to be a patent attorney, you have to get the STEM degree, then you have to, take the LSAT, then you have to go to law school, the patent bar, the state bar, and then, you're just starting with your career. So then it's your whole career. And how do we make sure that people can get all the way there, right? And not give up on one of the steps, because there's so many places where you might just give up. And so what we really try to do, which you can hear about more in Bridge this Wednesday during our celebrations event, is how do we connect the pipeline, right? What support resources are available when you're a high schooler? And how do those support resources hand off the baton to the next support resource, right? How do we get into law school? And then once we're in law school, what scholarships are available to get you through law school? How do you find out more about the patent profession? And really breaking down each stage in the pipeline, finding out what resources are available, connecting those resources so that they're all in contact with each other, and the transition from one step to the next step is seamless. All the way to you're now a practicing professional. How do we build the community so that you're set up with the right network in the right village to ensure that you succeed? So that's what ADAPT is.
And so you all have a wonderful website that provides information. I know sometimes people will come to me and ask about a mentor or a program or even law firm fellowships or whatever, in 1L, 2L positions. I say, go to ADAPT. It is such a resource because you have listings for various stages for what, if they're undergraduate, where do I go? Another thing about ADAPT I think is interesting is talking about the various roles we have in IP. And maybe, getting into IP without a technical background. Can you talk a little bit about those aspects and the guides that are available? And any of Judy, Mike, or Gail can talk about that. Because I know I was on a panel with Tiffany and just talking about different roles you can enter into the patent profession, because there's all types of roles that we need to be an effective patent department.
Yeah, I was not one of the folks that worked on the guide to the profession, but I do think it is a fantastic resource, and one that after we first started highlighting a variety of programs was an important one for us to put out there, because there are, as you said, like a number of roles. There's also patent litigation, which doesn't require the technical degree to be able to take the patent bar, and just like making sort of clear for someone like even myself who showed up to law school and didn't know about patent law, but found out I happened to be fortunate enough to have the degree, just so that there is that resource to say, this is what they each look like. And, you don't have to pick right away either, right? You can start exploring and understanding what a job looks like in each of those, whether it's patent agent, transactions attorney, litigation attorney, patent prosecution, and so on. So
examiner, patent judge. I mean, there's just such a breadth of different roles.
Yeah. And then I would also say, like, when we first, getting back to kind of the story of founding ADAPT, as we started to really kind of get kind of confirmation that we wanted to create this platform that would bring all these resources together, we also said, but like, we want to do something that is ADAPT is doing as well to have an impact. And so we, as Gail was saying, connecting people all with this goal of creating community, launched a mentorship program as well. So that's our second pillar is the mentorship program. And they're kind of also in the mind of, we don't want to go out and compete with other great programs. We chose to focus on undergraduate students that maybe aren't even making a decision right away about patent law, but just to raise awareness around what a career in patent law would look like. And we are making mentors available at each of the founding companies, as well as we've had several law firms volunteer to provide mentorship as well. And that program's just started. It's just in its first year, and we're kind of learning a lot as we go by putting together different curriculum for the students to give them that introduction that so many of us didn't have.
So that's really interesting. Did the mentorship program would also have a curriculum associated with, just, I guess, giving them key aspects of what a career and patent
Yeah.
law is.
What is patent law? Yeah.
That's amazing. And that, is it something that it's self-learning and then the mentor will come in and talk more about it? Or is it just Q&A with a mentor about roles?
Yeah, so we're kind of growing it as we go, but what we've done is we've had like full group sessions where all the students can call in and hear presentations, and then we've also had one-on-one pairings, and then some companies. So like one example, like especially during our summer internship program, Microsoft put on some presentations and invited all of the mentors to attend those intern learnings that were happening at Microsoft. So just a variety of how can we help and raise awareness, and just be there and be a resource, because you never know who you're going to have an impact on, and it's always better, right, to like try to help someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're focusing on a group that's so right. Those who've already chosen degrees that they can sit for the patent bar. And how are you reaching out? How do they become aware of ADAPT, the undergraduate students? Are you starting, I guess you would start on a smaller scale and then expand out? I know it's not like we can't do it all at once.
Yeah, what we did was we identified a handful of universities that we felt would maybe have students that might be interested, that would provide more of an increase in diversity to the patent bar, should those students opt to eventually go down a career in patent law. And we reached out to their career services and we said, hey, we're ADAPT, like let us tell you what our mission is. We're also forming this program. Can you advertise it to your students? And I will say, like, there were some career offices that were super excited and others that were like, I'm not understanding. Can we have a phone call? So, but right, you just make the time to bring everybody along at their own pace. And then students, I presume, got material about the program, went to our site, applied, and then we went through the applications and selected our first class.
And how many students were in the first class?
I want to say we had 17, okay. Something like that. I'd have to go back to like my exact spreadsheet, but
yeah, I can say just personally, when I've told someone about careers in patent law, especially if I've told them early on, I feel like, and the gratitude I get from a parent that I've told them about careers in patent law. Actually, I was taking an Uber last week and I was talking to my Uber driver and he was talking about his son who's in high school that's getting a technical background. And I said, oh, whoa, wait a second. Okay, great. Let me tell you about this. And he was so excited. I said, here's my number. If he wants to call me, I want to come to it's a technical school in Baltimore City. I said, I will come there and speak and tell you about this inroad into patent law. And I think the more people making that difference and speaking up, like reaching out through this mentorship program and some of the outreach that we'll talk about a little bit later, Gail, that you're doing, and that makes such a difference in informing people again about careers in patent law. But I want to talk a little bit about impact and achievements. You all are coming up, ADAPT is coming up on its 1-year anniversary. Happy birthday, anniversary. And how do you think ADAPT in its first year has impacted the legal industry? Are there any specific achievements or success stories you can share? Feel free to share any stories you have.
I mean, I do feel a little like we went from 0 to 60 very quickly.
I'd say so. We've done a lot. Done a lot.
I think when we started, we were 6 companies. Now we're closer to 70 companies.
Wow.
We have, and by companies, I mean, companies like Microsoft, Meta, and Google, but also law firms and also even vendors like LexisNexis. And so it's a really great coming together of the entire industry. and working together for a common goal. And there's a number of things that we've achieved. So our platform runs. We have information on the platform about programs that are available at different stages. We have the professional guide that Judy talked about earlier. We have a corporate guide for corporations looking to get to learn more about DEI and looking to create their own programs. We have a number of guides in the works. So, for example, we're going to create an allyship versus sponsorship versus mentorship guide next year. So I think we have a number of really great informational resources for everyone to use. We have a number of programs that we're launching that will hopefully, build awareness on a more one-on-one level, right? So obviously we have the mentorship program that's also expanding next year to include other groups of students. So for example, we're looking at master's programs. Some colleges actually have a master's program on patents. And so we're looking at incorporating some of those students as well too. But one exciting thing that we're all doing together, including yourself, Elaine, is to go out there and go to all of the undergraduates and do panels for undergraduates on number one, what is IP, right? So to help the inventor diversity issue, where do people even know what it means to be an inventor? How do they know they should be listed on a patent application? How do they find out more information at whatever company they're at? So that's goal one. And then goal two would be, if you're not feeling engineering or engineering careers, what are the alternatives that are available? So we are very systematically reaching out to undergrads in cities where we live and where it's easy for us to get to, and making them aware of these things. And one of the cool things about this program is that we're doing it in combination or with a lot of different IP organizations. So there's ADAPT, obviously, but there's also IPO, there's AIPLA, there's PTAB Bar Association, and we're doing it together, which is really awesome. So I think we have the first of those outreaches scheduled, and we're looking forward to getting the feedback on how those go.
And this is what I love about ADAPT, the collaboration piece, like not wanting to reinvent the wheel and getting together other organizations to do that outreach, because between the 4 organizations that part of this, all of the attorneys and different locations that we represent as we pilot this program and move on board, you can only imagine the reach that it will have over time. I know we're starting small. I like to be like, let's go everywhere. We're starting small, but Gail, there's also a slide deck if people want to volunteer. I know there's a question here from Claudia at Kroll. It says, who can I contact to learn more about the student outreach program? And I think Gail would be a great person to contact about the student outreach program. If you're a part of AIPLA or IPO or PTAB Bar Association, we probably circulated a sign-up sheet, but then again, you can reach out to me or Gail, and we'll definitely get your name on that list in your locality. There's only maybe 5 or 6 different cities we're starting with, and then we'll expand out from there. So now you said you have 70 companies on board now. How did that outreach happen? Do you think it helped at the Lot Network Bridge event, or just through calls? I mean, I know how it is to bring people on board to a new initiative. So it's a lot of outreach, specifically some personal outreach, some branding on LinkedIn, how did you all go about getting other companies engaged? Although it's an impressive lineup of companies to start with. So what did that look like? What was the day-to-day and the outreach to corporations to get up to the number like 70?
I can jump in and say it's exponential word of mouth.
Yeah.
So when you get behind a cause like ADAPT that everyone really believes in, it's almost like an epiphany moment. Like people say, I often run into individuals who are like, tell me more about ADAPT. And really it's a gathering of individuals who got together, some friends who said, we can kind of combine DE&I initiatives and make it more accessible and easy for individuals to become a part of, whether it be individual as a company. And everyone was like, brilliant. How do I sign up? One of the biggest parts about ADAPT is demystifying the concept of joining an organization. Many people are like, what's the catch? Okay, how much is it going to cost me? Is there annual dues? What are the things that we're looking to do? But I think the fact that the ADAPT group founding group and then subsequent members all agreed that the barrier to entry would be minimal. So provide a program that you're interested in sharing with the broader community, just like you can find in ADAPT's webpage. So we started with a dozen, but we're well over 24 now that are freely available for anybody to review, peruse, download, etc. That was a simple framework for so many people who are already involved in Microsoft's Makes What's Next program, Harrity's Patent Pathways program. So many different organizations are already there. So they were like, well, so I get automatic ADAPT membership? And you're like, yes. The other is simply to commit to participating in one or more of the ADAPT programs. So like the mentoring program that Judy mentioned, one thing that she, so artfully crafted was the ability to create a network for each of those mentees. She mentioned joining law school so that she could have a network of friends in her new city. Well, we're building that into the mentoring program. Maybe you don't want to be friends with me, I'm a little kooky, but generally speaking, you can find a group of individuals who are like-minded, have similar personalities, and are willing to be supportive of you. And it's built into the mentoring program. Well, if Elaine, being on an ADAPT meeting, participating is easy, especially when you're passionate and love what you do. Well, if that's another criteria for joining, that makes joining all the more, easier to be a part of the organization. And with criteria like that for membership, sharing it with one became sharing it with 10. And that was just a natural cause. Now, I will say, Gail and others who are very instrumental in closing the deal, Fong and others who are signing people up and adding them to mailing lists and getting calendar invites out. We could not do it without the litany of individuals who are dedicated to making this a success. But people were very interested, still are, not just in our respective regions, but globally.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I do love the participation that people, with regard to some of the group calls that we have, the committee work that we do specifically in these different tiers, the ability to share your opinion and the support you get. And again, that networking, not just for the students, but for other professionals in the patent field. I think that's a great point, because I know I found that since I've been there and formed some really great friendships. I know I heard at the last meeting that we're moving into, I keep saying moving into the global space. Gail, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know you had mentioned filling spots for a working group in Europe.
Yeah. So first of all, it definitely is we. ADAPT belongs to everybody. So we are slowly moving our way around the world. Obviously, diversity, equity, inclusion issues are not unique to the United States. Although I will say, I think the United States has actually thought a lot about them, which is why we have all these great programs and things set up. As we go globally, we are trying to work with people who are local in those areas to figure out how important diversity, equity, inclusion is for those countries in locations. So everyone's issues are a little bit different, right? So in Europe, for example, a lot of people in the patent profession aren't lawyers, right? There's a very good career path that, is essentially like a patent agent career path, if we were to compare it to the United States. And that piece of it isn't their issue, right? They have other issues. And so it's just really going to different countries and, figuring out what it is that, what it is that they care about, what needs to change in order to have a better working environment for everybody, and what are the things that already exist. And how do we make those things better? And so we're slowly gathering people in other locations to try and work on these issues. Europe is one of the areas of the world where the groups of people together are more active. So now our European working group has representatives from all over Europe. So we have Ireland, we have the UK, we have France, we have Germany, and we're just trying to figure out what exists, what should we do, what are the goals. So they're basically just where we were a year ago, trying to figure out what is the launch plan, like what is it, how is it that us as a group of people can be most helpful.
I mean, it's a big goal to go globally on diversity initiatives, but starting smaller in the kind of the European, and you have other countries, I mean, like Australia, Canada, and I guess if you form groups for those particular locations.
Yeah, so that's harder. We have a handful of companies, but they're sort of by themselves at the moment. But we have a member from Australia, one from Taiwan, like two from India, and so and then I guess one from Canada. So we have people, but the issues are very different as you're going from this part of the world to the other part of the world. So you do actually need a group of people before you're really able to accomplish anything. I think for Europe, we have that critical mass of people who would like to be dedicated and would like to work on something together. I think in some of the other countries, we're still trying to get that group together, see if is just to see if the issue is ripe enough that it's the time to act on them.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. No, we talked a little bit about how to get involved with ADAPT and what the requirements are for membership. Mike, I think you went through that. So if there's a corporation that's listening today or a law firm, like what's the next step? Like, do you go on the website and sign up, or do they reach out to one of you? I want to become a member. And just to step back a little bit, I know we talked about having 70 corporations on board. Can law firms be members? I mean, I don't think I know the answer to this, and what does that look like for a law firm to be a member?
I would say it looks the same. Really what we're asking is that people take action either by contributing to the platform or adopting a program that's on the platform, driving an initiative through ADAPT. One of the things that I really like about ADAPT is if you have an idea, like I think we've already said this, the group is very interested in like supporting that and growing it. When we originally started, we hadn't thought much about policy, and then the patent office came out with a request for comments that we said, hey, we're going to respond to that, and we leapt into action and did that. And so I think it's just a matter of reaching out. We do have a membership intake form that is on the website that you can fill out, but you can also reach out to any one of us. I've found that in my conversations, everyone's very interested, but they maybe get a little stuck on like what their contribution can be. And so I always encourage people, like, it doesn't have to be a big splashy program that you're expanding to open up to anyone that wants to participate. And oftentimes I kind of go back to the roots of ADAPT and Gail's initial ask of myself and Mike, which was, what's the inventory for your company? What are you already doing? And is there a way that we can highlight that or expand that work? And oftentimes then people are like, oh yeah, like there is this great program, or we have this good guide, and this is how we're doing it. One of my favorite stories is HP. So in talking to them, Shada, she had a program where for every engineering intern that comes in the summer, they're offered an IP mentor in the IP team. And not everyone takes them up on this, but those that do get paired with a patent attorney or a patent litigator, or like the list goes on, and they get that exposure. And it's so simple and it's so easy, and so it's something that anyone can do. And it's like, okay, look, there's another example of a way that we can raise awareness around careers in IP.
I think that's such a brilliant idea. I haven't heard about that before. Is there a way that you advertise that on ADAPT's platform? How do you go about doing that?
So we've been trying to put together, and we do have several out there already, of these how-to guides, like how somebody else has already implemented this, so that it's easier for those that are like, yeah, I'd love to do that, to go about, engaging with whether or not, is there cost associated with the program? What type of resources do you need? Or is it something as simple as, hey, in, this experience, you get about this much intake. Maybe at a company that's large, you might say, well, we're only going to do it for the interns that are, in a particular business unit, see what that percentage looks like in case there's a run on the IP department, which probably isn't likely. But yeah, it really is, I think, don't be afraid to start small, because there's so many ways that you can take action to make a change.
And we've been trying to be more conscientious of creating smaller opportunities, especially for people who have an hour here or there. So for example, a lot of the guides that we're creating, we need people to be interviewed, right? So like say you're in one of the patent professions that aren't currently in the guide, then we need you to contribute your profession. Can you sit for 1 hour interview? If and no matter where you are in your career, we have this allyship, sponsorship, mentorship guide. We would like to hear from both sides of the table, right? So like people who are mentors, people who are being mentored, and how that relationship works and what's helpful, what's not. So there's a lot of these very discrete things that, you know, we've been trying to gather together in a list so that people can sign up for, you know, the chunk that they can bite off.
And so I was thinking also about, as we're starting to wrap up here, about reaching younger students. For me, I think of the undergraduates who have decided on technical degrees as the low-hanging fruit. They have already decided to pursue that. What is the vision for younger students, maybe in high school or even younger? I know, Judy, that Microsoft has that amazing video about diversity and innovation for young women. What's ADAPT? Does ADAPT have I know we're doing a little bit on the outreach side. I know that's the intention, but what's your feeling on reaching younger students?
I don't know that we've made as much progress as we could in that way yet, right? Like I think there's always more that we can do. We have tried to do some partnerships with like Girls Who Code and other organizations like that provide or like even the Girl Scouts do the IP patch. Like I see like ways that we could bring ADAPT messaging into some of those spaces. But I personally haven't done as much today that I would like to do. I don't know.
That's exactly how we are on what we're doing, like, because we have so much, it's so rich what we're doing now and reaching out to undergraduates. And once we feel like that we've made some progress there, we can start going younger. And I think the outreach program, we talk about that, Gail, starting at undergraduate and then going younger to high schools.
I think that's right. I think what's tough about going before college is that it's how do you, like, what do you do? Like, what are you trying to do? I think is the question, right? So, I mean, Google runs, for example, street law program every year. Because I happen to run that program, we have incorporated an IP component to it. But we have to be realistic, right? It's like, are you trying to turn every kid into a lawyer, every kid into an IP lawyer? It's like, no. What we're really trying to do is we're just trying to make somebody's world a little bit bigger, right? We're trying to give them something new to think about, right? And that new thing might be like, oh, here's a new a new career path like lawyer, right? But it could also be, oh, like I might be able to work for a tech company one day. Or it might even be as simple as, oh, actually, you know, maybe I can go get a STEM degree. And so I think there's a lot there that we need to talk about and think about as to like what it is that we're trying to do at the earlier stage, like, and what would be most helpful.
And I think, like you said, sometimes it's planting that seed for those who might have that aptitude or desire to move in that direction, but not making everybody, not everybody wants to be a patent attorney. As much as we love being patent attorneys, I'm sure not everybody wants to be one. So we are probably about 5 minutes out. I know, I think we've answered most questions in the chat. Actually, there's a question. Do you all know about a particular resource for a patent bar exam tutor? Do you all provide any tutoring for or resources for patent bar exam tutoring? I can say Patent Pathways right now, our program is limited to Black women with STEM degrees, but do you know of any others with regard to helping or mentors that can help with patent bar prep?
So there's also Khan Academy. So they have free tools for patent bar. I'm unaware of like actual like live people mentors, but Khan Academy is one that we recently uncovered.
I did not realize that Khan Academy has some patent prep materials.
Yeah, patent bar prep.
That's amazing. I did not know that. I learned something new. Excellent. So this is from Avery. I just love this conversation, the revolutionary imagination it fosters for the patent industry and the way ADAPT is galvanizing folks and its revolutionary imagination for the patent industry. Thank you so much. I think that's a wonderful comment. So
on the patent bar tutor side, I would also say, if this is like for the person that's asking the question, don't be afraid to reach out to someone who is a patent attorney and ask them for, how did you go about studying? What was your process? Because I think there are different ways and different resources, and I'm sure many people do PLI or Barbary exam classes, but there are some other ways. And so, yeah, adapt as a resource or just reach out to someone who is one. And most attorneys I have found and patent agents are more than willing to have a conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. So as we wrap up, I know, Gail, you've talked about this a little bit. What is one call to action you would like to leave the audience with regard to diversity in the IP space and adapt? Is there one key message? I think you said it, but you can go ahead again.
Sure. I mean, I think, and this will be longer than intended. So in college, I spent 2 really wonderful summers with Procter and Gamble, and their motto is actually touching lives, improving life. And that's always really, really resonated with me. And, when I think about, who we are in the tech industry, the products that we work on, the technologies that we work on, those do touch billions of users every single day. And those products and those technologies don't work the way that they're intended to work unless they're created by a community of people, more specifically, our community of people. And so this is very, very important to creating products and creating technologies that are useful. And so we hope that everybody will try and find the 1 hour in their day to contribute something and to give back. And if you're confused about what that could be, just contact us. We have some ideas.
Thank you, Gail. Judy?
Yeah, just take action in any way that you can to advance diversity, and we'll get there together as a community.
Thank you. Mike?
I think it was Ashley. Thank you so much for posting in the chat. She said, she quoted Michael Jordan, which, for those of you who don't know me, I'm an avid sneakerhead and a big Michael Jordan fan. And her quote was, "Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships." I think that's exactly right. But there's another Michael Jordan quote that I think resonates when it came to adapt in our effort that we can do together, is obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. And when we came together as ADAPT, the whole purpose was to crowdsource and combine the efforts of so many amazing people doing so many wonderful and impactful things so that we could create a way around the obstacles that we see in our profession. And, your wonderful article, Elaine, about there being more mics in the patent bar than racially diverse women, it sits with me. And I quote it regularly because that's not a world I want to practice in. And so together we can get around that obstacle. And members of ADAPT are working towards it every day. And we're really excited for everyone listening to spread the word and get on board with the process.
Thank you all so much, Mike, Judy, and Gail, for taking time out of your busy day. And for those of you who are in the Bay Area, we have mentioned the Lot Network Bridge event that's happening on the 27th at the Palace Hotel. And they'll have Judy, you'll be there. Judy and Gail, and Mike, are you? I think it's not this one. Okay, so Judy and Gail, you'll be there. And it's starting in the afternoon. It's open to the patent community. So it's
open to the public. Yeah, you don't need to be a member of Lot Network to join.
So if you're in the Bay Area, stop in and say hi to this amazing group. And if you want to get involved in ADAPT, please go on their website, reach out to any of our panelists, reach out to me. we'd love to see you again take a first step into improving diversity in the patent field. So thank you all so much, and have